Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are beginning a new Mishnah, Mishnah 9, and the person who is quoted in this Mishnah is named Shimon ben Shattach. Shimon ben Shattach was pretty well known. He had an interesting life. He was the brother of the queen, Shlom Zion, and there were a couple of interesting stories involving him. He was very influential in fighting against the Sadducees and reinstating the authority of the Sanhedrin according to halacha. One of the more famous stories had to do with some witches, which existed at that time, where he ended up causing them to be executed, and then they took revenge by some people, their relatives took revenge by accusing his son of murder and hiring false witnesses. There's a whole story, and in fact, the Talmud brings it down where the witnesses were false, and right before his son was supposed to be executed for murder, the one of the witnesses said, "I lied," but it was too late because the actual law is that we don't believe a witness when he just says, "I lied," after the fact. So the son of Shimon ben Shattach said, we can't change the law. The law is the way it is. If we change the law, it's going to undermine the whole system. And he went to his execution, and it was very Shimon ben Shattach. This Mishnah, many say, is an outgrowth of that story. In this Mishnah, he says, that it's the responsibility of the court, the judges, to really interrogate the witnesses very well. And the judge should be careful in his words. In that if you, depending on how the judge speaks, it is possible that the witnesses will learn how to lie. They'll be able to say certain things that are not true based on what the judge is saying. And again, the idea that in a case of his son, where he was caused to be guilty by false witnesses, so this law he's saying the judges have to be really interrogating to make sure that the witnesses, because it is true that a good liar can get away with it if they have their story straight, and sometimes it does happen where false witnesses are able to get away with something. But the more you question the witness, then the more likely it is to be able to find out that they're truly lying. So, in general, the law is, when you have witnesses, there's a number of questions that have to be asked, certainly to set the parameters. And by the way, in Jewish court, we need two witnesses to establish something to be true, especially in a capital case, of course. And the two witnesses are not being interrogated in front of each other. So one witness does not know what the other witness answered. They're being asked the question separately so that their stories have to match. So there are a whole slew of questions that are standard questions, and then based on the case, the judge is going to ask more questions to determine the truth of the matter. And there are the questions that are establishing the time and the place, when did it happen, where did it happen, etc. And then the way the judge is asking the questions, part of it is to try to get the witnesses off balance, so that he's trying to trip them up. Maybe they're going to say something that's not true. And when a judge asks a question, so how he phrases it could end up giving hints to the witness of how to answer the question. And therefore, the message here is, be very careful in how you phrase your question so that you're not giving anything away to the witnesses to give them hints as to how to answer it. Um, we know this idea about information being skewed, right? That if you want to take a survey or a poll, right, depending on how you ask the question, could determine what the answer is going to be, right? If you ask something a certain way, then you may say yes to something which was not really what you intended because of the way the question was asked. Also, when the judge is asking questions, they kind of do it like a shotgun, quickly, one after the other, So the witness doesn't have to think of different, his response is going to be what's the fact without having him think about what is the answer I should be giving. Ask it from different angles also. Um, there is also the Bartanura points out the judge should not be asking leading questions. That if you give a leading question, then it's again an invitation to say an untruth. Um, the is also pointing out that the witnesses, when they're responding, obviously have to be totally truthful. The judge has a responsibility when he's talking that he has to be poker faced, because based on his expressions, will also be able to give hints to the witnesses as to how things are going, what do they think, which answers they think are working well and which aren't. His voice as well, moderate his voice, so that also does not give things away. So all of these are general things whenever you're trying to elicit truth from someone else. Your demeanor is one that has to be very impartial and very even, so that it doesn't give anything away. An interesting idea that Rabbi Twersky points out is that we can actually learn a lesson from here, separate from the judges, but learn for any situation, and that is so specifically as a parent, but really as any person who's interacting with others. And he says specifically as a parent has to be careful what they say in front of their children, because sometimes your children, well, all the time your children learn from you, but sometimes they can learn negative things from you. So he gives an example of, I mean, this may be a little bit more in the old days where everybody had a home phone, right? And so you didn't have your own cell phone. So when the phone rings in the house and the child answers the phone, and it's whoever it is on the line, and the parent does not want to speak to that person. So what do you say to the person on the other side? Do you say, "Oh," and the parent says, "Tell him I'm not home," right? So that you just taught your child to lie. So he says, don't do that kind of thing, because you are teaching your children a negative habit. You're teaching them to do the wrong thing. You could say I'm unavailable, but don't say he's not home. And therefore, whatever we are saying in front of others really gives off messages to other people as well. So certainly when it's a child that we're giving messages of how to conduct himself, but even to other adults, when especially if you're in a position of authority or a position of respect, then the way you are going to say things is going to give other people certain impressions, and they're going to learn lessons from you as well. And therefore, we all have a responsibility to be careful in how we speak and the things that we say, so that we are not giving the wrong message to others to learn from. And we'll hold it there. Have a great day, everyone.